What if I told you there's an ancient book, removed from most Bibles, that describes the fallen angels by name, reveals secrets about Prophet Idris, and explains mysteries that align remarkably with Islamic teachings? The Book of Enoch was considered scripture by early Christians and is still canonical in Ethiopian Christianity today. But here's what's shocking. Many of its descriptions of angels, jinn, and the unseen world mirror what's found in the Quran and hadith. Today, I'm revealing 7 forbidden pieces of knowledge from this mysterious text that every Muslim should know. Number 1. The Watchers, the fallen angels who taught forbidden knowledge. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 102, Allah tells us about those who taught magic during Solomon's time, saying it was not Solomon who disbelieved, but the devils who disbelieved, teaching people sorcery. The hadith in Sahih Muslim describes Harut and Marut, 2 angels who came to earth, but the Book of Enoch reveals something extraordinary that connects these pieces together. Chapter 6 describes how 200 angels descended to Mount Hermon and took an oath to corrupt humanity. Their leader, Azazel, taught weapons, cosmetics, and sorcery to mankind. Imagine 200 towering beings of light descending from the heavens onto a mountain peak, their radiance dimming as they take an oath that will corrupt all of humanity. Each one chooses a human woman, and from these unions come giants who would devour mankind and teach them knowledge that Allah never intended for humans to possess. These watchers taught 10 forbidden sciences: astrology, enchantments, root cutting, signs, astronomy, cloud formations, earth signs, sun signs, moon courses, and metallurgy. Islamic scholars have long debated whether Harut and Marut were angels or jinn, since angels typically cannot disobey Allah. But Enoch provides crucial context, suggesting these beings had free will in that moment and chose corruption. The Quran mentions that Harut and Marut would warn people, saying, "We are a trial, so do not disbelieve," yet people still learned from them what would cause separation between man and wife. This parallels exactly what Enoch describes: angels teaching forbidden knowledge, despite knowing the consequences. What's remarkable is how this explains the Islamic concept of evil jinn and shayateen. These weren't originally from Iblis's lineage, but may represent a separate category of fallen beings. For you as a Muslim, this matters because it deepens your understanding of spiritual warfare. When you recite Ayat al-Kursi for protection, or say your morning adhkar, you're not just following ritual, you're shielding yourself from entities whose corruption began before the time of Prophet Nuh. But these fallen angels didn't just teach forbidden knowledge to adults. They corrupted an entire generation through their offspring, and what the Book of Enoch reveals about these giant children will shock you. Number 2. The Nephilim, giants born from angels and humans. In Surah Al-Araf, verse 69, Allah reminds the people, saying, "Do you wonder that there has come to you a reminder from your Lord through a man from among you? Remember when he made you successors after the people of Nuh and increased you in stature extensively." The hadith literature in Sahih Bukhari mentions the people of Ad being of enormous height, so tall that they could uproot trees with their bare hands. But Enoch chapter 7 describes something even more terrifying. It states that the women became pregnant from the watchers and gave birth to great giants whose height was 3,000 cubits, approximately 4,500 feet tall, beings who could literally reach into the clouds. Picture giants so massive they could step over mountains, their appetites so vast that all the crops of humanity couldn't satisfy them for even a day. When food ran out, these creatures, half angel and half human, turned on mankind itself, hunting humans like prey, drinking blood, and teaching the survivors violence and warfare just to defend themselves against these monsters. The text says they consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. This wasn't just physical consumption, but spiritual corruption. They established systems of oppression, slavery, and violence that infected every corner of the earth. Islamic tradition mentions giant peoples like Ad and Thamud, who were destroyed for their arrogance and corruption. The Quran describes how the people of Ad built monuments on high places, thinking they would live forever, rejecting the warnings of prophethood. Enoch provides the origin story, explaining where these giants came from and why Allah's judgment was so severe. For you, understanding this history illuminates why the Quran repeatedly warns against arrogance and oppression. The Nephilim thought their size and strength made them invincible, just as the people of Ad did. But Allah's power is absolute, and He destroyed them completely through the flood, leaving only Nuh and the believers on the ark. These giants weren't just physically monstrous, but committed specific sins that cried out to the heavens, and what Enoch recorded about their crimes reveals exactly why Allah sent the flood to cleanse the earth. Now, you understand the origin of the corruption, but the story doesn't end with their physical destruction. What happened to the spirits of these giants after they died connects directly to your daily recitation of seeking refuge from the accursed shaitan. Number 3. The Book of Giants, Crimes that Demanded the Flood. The Quran in Surah Hud, verses 25 through 48, gives us the detailed account of Prophet Nuh and how Allah commanded him to build the ark because a devastating flood was coming. In Surah Nuh, verses 26 and 27, the prophet cries out, "My Lord, do not leave upon the earth from among the disbelievers an inhabitant. Indeed, if you leave them, they will mislead your servants and not beget except a wicked one and a disbeliever." But why was Allah's judgment so absolute? Why not just punish the guilty and spare the innocent? The Book of Enoch. Chapter 10 reveals crimes so heinous that the earth itself cried out for justice. The text describes how the giants began practicing sorcery and genetic corruption, mixing species in ways that violated the natural order Allah had created. They didn't just oppress humanity, but enslaved entire populations, forcing them to serve their unnatural appetites. Imagine the earth groaning under the weight of corruption, animals being mixed with other animals in grotesque experiments, humans subjected to magical rituals and torture, slavery normalized to the point where children were born in chains, knowing nothing but oppression and violence from their first breath. The Nephilim revealed secrets of heaven that were meant to remain hidden, teaching humans how to manipulate spiritual forces, how to communicate with demons, how to corrupt the very fabric of creation itself. Enoch records that the earth laid accusation before heaven, stating that lawlessness had spread to every corner. That innocent blood cried out from the ground, just as the blood of Habel cried out when Kabil murdered him. The corruption wasn't limited to humanity. Even the animal kingdom had been violated through unnatural breeding and mixture, creating abominations that had no place in Allah's perfect design. This explains why the Quran emphasizes that Nuh called his people for 950 years, yet they refused to listen. It wasn't mere disbelief, but active, systematic corruption of everything Allah had created. The text in Enoch states that Allah commanded the archangel Sariel, who some Islamic scholars suggest may be connected to Jibril, to warn Nuh to build the ark because a flood would cleanse the earth completely. For you as a Muslim, this reveals why Allah sometimes allows complete destruction rather than gradual reform. When corruption becomes so total that even the animal kingdom is violated, when children are born into systems of evil so complete they cannot conceive of goodness, only absolute cleansing can restore creation to its intended state. The flood wasn't cruelty, but mercy, removing a cancer that would have consumed everything Allah loved about His creation. But here's what's remarkable. The Book of Enoch doesn't just describe the punishment, it reveals what happened to the spirits of these giants after they died. And this connects directly to Islamic teachings about jinn and shayateen, that you recite protection from every single day. Number 4, the origin of evil spirits, where demons came from. In Surah Al-Jinn, verses 1 through 6, Allah reveals that a group of jinn listened to the Quran and said, "Indeed, we have heard an amazing Quran. It guides to the right course, and we have believed in it. The hadith in Sahih Muslim describes how jinn and shayateen can possess humans, causing illness, madness, and evil whispers in the heart. But where did these evil spirits originally come from? The Book of Enoch, chapter 15, verses 8 through 12, provides a chilling answer that Islamic scholars have debated for centuries. When the Nephilim died in the flood, their spirits didn't go to judgment like human souls, nor did they return to heaven like angels. Instead, they remained trapped on earth, wandering as disembodied entities filled with rage and hunger. Picture the moment of death for these hybrid giants, half angel and half human, their massive bodies falling into the floodwaters, but their spirits rising from the corpses, only to find themselves unable to ascend to heaven or descend to the depths. These spirits, neither fully angelic nor fully human, became trapped in the earthly realm, invisible beings of pure malice seeking to afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, and work destruction upon humanity. Enoch describes how the spirits of the giants became evil spirits upon the earth, and from the spirits of these beings will come forth evil spirits, because from above they were created. From the holy watchers was their beginning and primal origin. They will be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits they shall be called. Unlike human souls that await judgment or angels that serve Allah's commands, these entities exist in a state of perpetual rebellion, seeking human bodies to inhabit because they desperately desire physical form again. This explains the Islamic practice of seeking refuge in Allah from the whispers of shayateen, and the importance of staying in a state of wudu and reciting protective verses like Ayat al-Kursi. When you recite the morning and evening adhkar, you're not engaging in empty ritual, but creating a spiritual barrier against entities that have been prowling the earth since before the time of Ibrahim. These disembodied spirits explain why possession occurs, why evil whispers come into hearts during prayer, why some places feel oppressed with spiritual darkness. The Quran confirms in Surah An-Nas that we must seek refuge from the whisperer who withdraws, who whispers into the breasts of mankind, from among the jinn and mankind. Enoch suggests that these demons, these evil spirits born from the Nephilim, constitute a category distinct from Iblis and his offspring, a separate army of corruption that wages war against the children of Adam. For you, this knowledge transforms how you understand spiritual protection. Every time you say, A'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ir-rajim, you're acknowledging a real, present danger that has existed for thousands of years. Entities that watched empires rise and fall, that whispered into the ears of tyrants and led nations astray. These evil spirits had specific leaders, fallen angels who commanded them and taught them how to corrupt humanity. And one name in the Book of Enoch should sound remarkably familiar to every Muslim who has studied the story of Iblis. Number 5. Azazel, the angel who may be connected to Iblis. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 34, Allah commands the angels, prostrate before Adam, so they prostrated except for Iblis. He refused, and was arrogant, and became of the disbelievers. But in Surah Al-Kahf, verse 50, Allah clarifies that Iblis was of the jinn, and departed from the command of his Lord. This has puzzled scholars for centuries. Was Iblis an angel or a jinn? The Book of Enoch, chapter 10, verses 4 through 8, describes a being named Azazel, who may provide the missing link. The text commands, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness. Cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of judgment he shall be cast into the fire. Azazel was the chief of the Watchers, the leader of the rebellion who descended to Mount Hermon. He specifically taught humans the art of making swords, knives, shields, and breastplates for warfare, and he taught women the use of antimony for the eyes, and precious stones, and dyes for beautification, introducing vanity and violence simultaneously. Imagine the most magnificent angel in heaven, perhaps second only to Jibril in rank and beauty, standing before the throne of Allah, surrounded by eternal light and glory. But pride enters his heart like a seed of poison, growing until he looks at humanity, weak and made of clay, and refuses to bow. For this rebellion against divine command, Allah orders that Azazel be bound in chains and cast into a pit of absolute darkness, sealed there until Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection, when he will face the fire prepared for him and his followers. The name Azazel means God strengthens, suggesting he was a being of immense power and high rank before his fall, perhaps even responsible for leading the worship of heaven before corruption seized him. Some Jewish traditions connect Azazel to the scapegoat ritual mentioned in their scriptures, where one goat would symbolically carry the sins of the people into the wilderness, to Azazel's domain of desolation and darkness. Islamic tradition teaches that Shaitan is restrained during Ramadan, unable to whisper and corrupt as freely as during other months. This mirrors Enoch's description of Azazel being bound in darkness, suggesting that even in his fallen state, Allah maintains absolute control over when and how he can operate. The parallel becomes even stronger when you consider that both Iblis and Azazel were given respite until the Day of Judgment. In the Quran, when Allah expels Iblis from paradise, the devil requests, "Reprieve me until the day they are resurrected," and Allah grants this, allowing him to test humanity until the final day. Enoch describes Azazel's imprisonment as temporary, lasting until the great day of judgment, when he will finally be destroyed forever. For you as a Muslim, this connection reveals something profound about the nature of spiritual rebellion. Whether we call him Iblis, Shaitan, or Azazel, the pattern remains consistent: a high-ranking being consumed by pride, refusing to submit to Allah's command regarding humanity, teaching forbidden knowledge and corruption, and ultimately bound in darkness awaiting final destruction. When you recite A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, seeking refuge from the accursed Satan, you're acknowledging this ancient enemy who has been whispering to the children of Adam since before recorded history. But Azazel wasn't working alone in his corruption of humanity, and the Book of Enoch names other fallen angels, each responsible for teaching specific types of forbidden knowledge, and their names appear in Islamic tradition in ways you've never noticed before. Number 6. The names of the fallen, angels in Enoch and Islamic tradition. The Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 102, mentions Harut and Marut by name as two angels who taught magic in Babylon, and various hadith literature describes the names and ranks of angels who serve Allah's commands. But the Book of Enoch, chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, provides a systematic list of the leaders among the fallen: Semjaza, Urakiba, Ramil, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Chazakiel, Barakiel, Asael, Armaros, Batariel, Ananiel, Zakiel, Samsapiel, Satariel, Turiel, Jomjael, and Sariel, 19 leaders commanding 200 fallen angels in total. Picture a council chamber in the heavens before the fall, 200 luminous beings arranged in perfect order, each one holding authority over a specific domain of knowledge and creation. Sariel commanded knowledge of the moon's courses. Ramiel presided over visions and thunder. Kokabiel, whose name means Star of God, taught the constellations and astrology, and Barakiel taught the signs of lightning. In heaven, this knowledge served Allah's creation perfectly, angels using their specialized understanding to maintain the order and beauty of the universe. But on earth, when shared with rebellious humanity, each piece of knowledge became a tool of destruction and corruption. What's remarkable for you as a Muslim is how some of these names echo through Islamic tradition in unexpected ways. Sariel, also called Suriel in some texts, bears similarity to Azrael, the angel of death in Islamic tradition, though scholars debate whether they are the same being or different entities entirely. Ramiel's connection to visions and prophetic dreams mirrors the role of angels in Islamic teaching, who bring true dreams to the believers. Israfil, the angel who will blow the trumpet on the Day of Judgment, has a name structure similar to several angels listed in Enoch. The systematic organization described in the Book of Enoch aligns with Islamic teaching that angels have ranks and specializations. Jibril brings revelation, Mikael controls rain and sustenance, Israfil will announce the resurrection, and Azrael takes souls at death. Each angel serves a specific function in Allah's perfect design. Enoch suggests that before their fall, the Watchers had similar specialized roles, but they corrupted their knowledge by teaching it to humanity prematurely. Kokabiel taught astrology, which in heaven meant understanding Allah's signs in the stars, but on earth became fortune-telling and divination, practices explicitly forbidden in Islam. Armaros taught the resolving of enchantments. Barakiel taught astrology. Akibiel taught signs. Tamiel taught astronomy. And Asaradel taught the motion of the moon, each transforming divine knowledge into forbidden magic. For you, this reveals something crucial about knowledge itself. Information is not inherently evil, but context and intention matter absolutely. The same knowledge that serves Allah's purposes in heaven becomes corruption when humanity seeks it through rebellion rather than submission. When you study astronomy to appreciate Allah's creation and calculate prayer times, you engage in worship. When someone studies astrology to predict the future and bypass trust in Allah's decree, they follow in the footsteps of the fallen. The Quran warns against seeking knowledge of the unseen through forbidden means, and Enoch shows us exactly how this corruption began. These fallen angels had names, identities, and specific domains of knowledge they corrupted. But the most remarkable part of this entire story is that the Book of Enoch claims to be written by Prophet Idris himself. And what this ancient prophet saw during his heavenly journey will leave you absolutely speechless. Number 7. Prophet Idris, the prophet who walked with Allah. In Surah Maryam, verses 56 and 57, Allah says, "And mention in the book Idris, indeed, he was a man of truth and a prophet, and we raised him to a high station." In Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 85, Idris is mentioned among the patient prophets, alongside Ismail and Dhul-Kifl, all described as being among the righteous. But what does it mean that Allah raised him to a high station? Islamic tradition tells us that Idris, known as Enoch in Hebrew, is one of only 2 prophets taken to heaven without tasting death, the other being Isa, Jesus, son of Maryam. The Book of Enoch, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, opens with these words, "The words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed." Imagine a man so righteous, so beloved by Allah, that death itself could not claim him. Instead, angels descend and lift him from the earth, carrying him upward through layer after layer of heaven, each realm more magnificent than the last. In the first heaven, he sees the angels who govern the stars and snow and dew. In the second heaven, he witnesses the fallen angels awaiting judgment, bound in chains of darkness. As he ascends higher, the glory intensifies until human words fail to capture what he sees. Chapter 71 of Enoch describes his final ascension and transformation, where he stands before the throne of the Ancient of Days, the title used for Allah in the text, and sees secrets no other human prophet had witnessed at that time. According to Islamic tradition, Idris was raised to the 4th heaven, though some scholars say the 6th, where he remains alive even now, worshiping Allah continuously. He was the first prophet to teach humanity writing, mathematics, and astronomy, the permissible knowledge that helps us understand Allah's creation, rather than rebel against it. Unlike the fallen angels, who taught forbidden magic and warfare, Idris taught humans how to calculate the movements of celestial bodies for navigation and agriculture, how to record history and wisdom through writing, how to use numbers for trade and architecture. The Quran emphasizes that he was a man of truth, meaning everything he recorded came from divine revelation, not human speculation. Enoch chapter 14 describes how he was shown the future day of judgment, seeing the resurrection of the dead, the gathering of all souls, the weighing of deeds, and the eternal destinations of paradise and hellfire. He saw angels by the millions, prostrating continuously before the divine throne, never tiring, never ceasing their worship. He witnessed the preserved tablet, what Muslims call the Law al-Mahfuz, where every destiny, every decree, every moment of cosmic history is recorded in perfect detail. The text states that he saw the storehouse of the winds, the treasury of the snow and hail, the chambers where thunder and lightning are kept, until Allah commands their release. Islamic tradition confirms that the heavens contain realms and wonders beyond human comprehension, and Idris was privileged to witness these mysteries firsthand. But why would Allah show him these things? Chapter 1 explains, so that he could write it down as a warning and encouragement for future generations. The Book of Enoch is presented as a prophetic record, a testimony from a man who walked with Allah so closely that he was taken into the divine presence while still alive. For you as a Muslim, Idris represents the ultimate goal of spiritual devotion, to walk so closely with Allah that the barriers between heaven and earth become thin, to be so purified that you can receive knowledge directly from the divine source. When you pray tahajjud in the depth of night, when you make dhikr until your heart softens, when you study the Quran seeking understanding, you follow in the footsteps of Idris, who dedicated his entire life to knowing and serving his Creator. The Quran calls him a man of truth, confirming that his core message was authentic, even if later scribes may have added or altered portions of his book through the centuries. Now that you know these 7 pieces of forbidden knowledge from the Book of Enoch, from fallen angels to giant offspring, from the origin of demons to the ascension of a prophet, you have a choice to make about how this knowledge will transform your spiritual life. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.